Tomorrow, the 44th Annual March for Life will be held in Washington, D.C., with satellite marches in many communities around the United States. It all marks the anniversary of the Supreme Court's landmark Roe v. Wade decision, which legalized abortion. Jeanette Burdell is the Executive Director of Right to Life in St. Joe County here in Indiana. She joins us today on The Harvest Show to talk about the pro-life movement, and a movement right now, Jeanette, that seems to have plenty of momentum behind it. There are lots of good things happening for pro-lifers out there.
There sure are, Chuck. Just since 2011, I was recounting this morning how many abortion clinics have closed around the country. So while Roe v. Wade is still law of the land, we are on the offensive now, I would say, and things are looking up.
Why do you think that's happened? Because obviously there's a new sheriff in town now with President Donald Trump, but all of these closings happened well before he took office.
That's right. I just think it's people. It's the body of Christ getting out there and saying, no more. We cannot allow this scourge on our country anymore. We're taking matters into our own hands. Legislatively, we elect officials that will pass good laws. And then, so it's no longer bar yourself to the door of the abortion clinic. It's let's be wise as serpents and gentle as doves, you know. I mean, let's get some real work done. So.
You know, I've heard the pro-choice argument, Roe v. Wade will never be overturned, so why the big deal? Why go march? Just accept it as it is. But so is that the ultimate goal, to have it overturned, or to just stop, curtail abortion in, you know, in communities around the country?
You know, it's both, really.
Okay.
I mean, you need both approaches. You just need to have it be less of an option that women want to seek. Mm-hmm. That's why a lot of abortion clinics closed, frankly, is lack of demand. And with the wonderful pregnancy resource centers we have around the country doing their wonderful work, women do know now more about their other options, and adoption, which we strive to make a better campaign of. We've got an advertising campaign to better that option because there's a stigma about it. So there is that. There's just the holistic approaching women. But then also, yes, of course we want to overturn Roe v. Wade, because as I said, it's a scourge on our country. It's awful that we have allowed 60 million unborn lives to be taken since 1973.
Obviously, one of the criticisms the pro-life community has faced throughout those 44 years is, okay, you tell us not to have abortions, but what alternatives do you provide? And you've talked about adoption, but you also mentioned these crisis pregnancy centers, these pregnancy resource centers that women have. Talk about what happens at those places.
Well, women get a free ultrasound, first of all. Instead of being lied to that this is a clump of cells, terminate the pregnancy, they see that it is really killing their child. And so even as early as 5 weeks, 6 weeks, there is a heartbeat, and they hear that. So at most of these centers, those are free services, a free ultrasound, free pregnancy test. There's such a thing even as early pregnancy loss, so she may not even have a viable pregnancy, but why risk being lied to by an abortion clinic who will certainly take her money and her child when she just has a lot more to learn. And then beyond that, these crisis pregnancy centers give her moral support, physical and material support as well, with the vast resources that are in the community that most women don't know about.
Is it correct that Planned Parenthood, performs almost all of the abortions, around the country or in other parts of the world?
They perform a large percentage. They are the largest abortion provider. Mm-hmm. I believe 325,000 lives are lost per year by Planned Parenthood in our country alone, and you're right, they're international. So there are lots of other independent abortion clinics as well, but Planned Parenthood is the biggest.
The Planned Parenthood supporters will say, well, they also offer a ton of other resources for women, and that they offer health checks. Is that true?
You know, Cecile Richards, their CEO, even had to appear before Congress and testify that they do not offer mammograms, when actually the mantra and the rhetoric had been before that they did, or they wouldn't correct those who would mislead the public in saying that they did. And so, no, that's one they don't offer. They don't help with pregnancies very often, prenatal care that is, adoption less than 1%. So the vast majority of their clientele that come to them pregnant are offered abortions.
Coming off the march that happened last weekend that involved women, does that put even more of an importance on the march that happens tomorrow for the pro-life community?
Absolutely, I believe so. I hope people around the country will come out stronger than ever in their communities. The March for Life in Washington, D.C., I think will be the largest ever probably because of what we're facing currently.
You know, we were talking before the show, and as an African-American woman, I am terribly, just really concerned at the number of children who are being aborted, black babies that are being aborted. Kind of share that statistic, because I told you when one of my white colleagues told me that about 15 years ago, I thought she was actually just being prejudiced, but it's not untrue. African-American babies are aborted at a disproportionate number.
That's right. You know, Valerie, the African-American population is 13% of our overall population in the country, and yet they make up over 30% of the abortions. In New York, it's extremely high at 55% of all black babies are killed in abortion. And this is tragic to all of us, regardless of the color of our skin. Those are people that were meant to be. You know, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you, says the Lord. And, you know, these are people missing from our communities now that were meant to be students, brothers, sisters, workers, you know, lending their unique gifts and talents, and they're no more. It's very sad.
Where is the disconnect between reaching the black community and the pro-life community then?
I hate to say, I think some of it is politics. We have to overcome that. At our Right to Life chapter, we are apolitical. That doesn't matter. Your faith doesn't matter which religion you are. We just want everyone to come alongside and to value the sanctity of life. Unfortunately, the issue has been politicized, but I would just like both major parties and everyone to just recognize the sanctity of life and say, this is an importance. Also, I believe our churches need to speak up more, frankly. Our pastors are sometimes shy or even afraid to bring up this issue. They know that they have a lot of post-abortive women and men even in their congregations. But what a disservice if we aren't courageous to speak up. Because yes, at the risk of offending some, you risk many more making the same grave decision because they think it's not a major issue now in our churches if we're silent. Plus, I think pastors need to be reaching out to those that are post-abortive in their congregations to offer them the help, the forgiveness, and the healing that we know is there for post-abortive people.
So for a pastor who's on the fence about how to do this, what does your organization offer them in terms of resources to help make it easier for them to do that?
We have all kinds of resources. We have a pretty big library of great topics on the subject, but I think my best resource is Mike Spencer. He's the Regional Midwest Director of Life Training Institute and came to our prayer dinner last year and really addressed the pastors with some of what I was saying, but so much better because he is a former pastor. He's walked in their shoes. And so I could refer them to him and he'd give them a good shot in the arm, some good advice.
Also, you have what's called a Life Defenders Boot Camp. Is that something that's taking place locally and nationally? Tell us about it.
Well, for sure regionally, there are life defenders around the Midwest, and I believe they go national as well. But yes, we have one coming up February 11th right here in our community. And you know, we all owe it to ourselves to learn better how to articulate the pro-life issue. And with compassion and grace, not just with judgment, right? I mean, we know as Christians in our heart of hearts that the Lord says, thou shalt not kill. And yet, women still are in hard situations. So we want to accompany and walk alongside. So these boot camps help train people in how best to do that. We've got 3 levels for youth from 8th grade and up, even through college age. But then for the first time ever, we're doing an adult session as well. And adults are craving this, actually. They're hungry for it.
Isn't that one of the difficulties, though? You mentioned the judgment. And for people who are perhaps silently pro-life, they don't want to stand out in a march. They don't want to stand out on the street. They don't want to necessarily stand outside an abortion clinic, but they support life. What are ways that they can get engaged into the pro-life effort without necessarily doing what they feel is a spectacle?
I'd say the first is prayer, and seriously, intentional prayer. works miracles. We know that. So from home, in your churches, pray for this to end. But secondly, support your local pro-life organizations financially or with your volunteerism, you know, time, talent, and treasure.
Right.
So there are quiet behind the scenes ways to do that. And then especially just talking about it with your family, your neighbors, your friends, and especially when a woman needs accompaniment.
Well,
Be there for
Jeanette,
her.
would you look into that camera and speak to that woman who had an abortion and is still dealing with the shame and the guilt of that issue? I mean, because we get calls here at Prayer Line about it. I can't move past the shame. I can't forgive myself.
There is forgiveness, absolutely, through Jesus Christ. He forgives you. No sin is too great for him. And if you think it is, that may be a sin of pride. We need to check that and know that Jesus forgives and Jesus heals. And there's help for you. There are many that care about you and just want to walk alongside you and help you heal. And perhaps you have a purpose now going forward to help others not make the same mistake.
Is there any kind of national help number that people can call and reach?
I'm sorry, I don't know that right off the top of my head, but Project Rachel, I know, is a national organization. And simply if you Google post-abortive help, there will be a lot of resources and hopefully even right in your own local area.
Well, Jeanette, we really appreciate you taking the time to share with us today. Good luck tomorrow with
Thank
the
you.
march, not only in D.C., but here in South Bend. To connect with Jeanette, you can go to prolifemichiana.org, or if you need some help, you can always go to our resources at harvest-tv.com. There's much more Harvest to come. Stay with us.